Welcome for the last class course using artificial intelligence for English teachers. This is the last part from yesterday that we are going to share, and then we are going to continue with prompt engineering using especially Cloud. Finally, we are going to create with Gemini Notebook the same information, so we can have here access to an infographic and a presentation format beta. Okay. You are going to log in Gemini Notebook. You are going to put create new. You have to verify the language of the website. The same, I am going to put the text to copy paste the text that I have from ChatGPT. And then I am going to choose the bottom presentation and infographic. I can also have a video summary, an audio summary. But in Notebook, I have to wait more. I am going to choose presentation. Describe the presentation, what it has to take. The resource is in English. And I put generate. I can also have an infographic that I am going to put in detail. I am going to share with an instruction. And then I am going to use scientific. Okay. Last but not least, we are going to create vocabulary flashcards. Where is the image? Okay. I'm going to put generate image. I need to try to put a prompt. In this case, based on this text, I need to connect Adobe Express with Magic School. It takes time to connect Adobe with Magic School, so also take and pay attention for the time that we have here in order to identify which artificial intelligence tool is the best one for you. You need to wait for the whole process to connect the images with. As you can see, it's not that I don't have internet connection. It's because it takes time to connect and log in with Adobe Express. As you can see, this is a very extended. You have to wait for the whole process so you can have, in this case, the complete connection. So you have to wait also because Adobe Express is also quite hard and it requires time to connect. So it takes time. You need to wait for the whole process and then you have the image as you can see. Now I have the information. I am going to download. It takes time. As you can see, it really took time. I am going to put to save to Magic School. That is also going to take time. It's because of the format itself for Adobe Express. So if you have the same situation, don't worry, take your time because it takes time to save. Okay, as you could see, I am going to write with this format sample. And you are going to have the same vocabulary list generator creator for you. Okay, and here I have the image based on the prompt for ChatGPT to Magic School Adobe Express vocabulary generator. I can have the same, share publicly, connect, copy link, and download. Now I have the information for notebook element based on the same information that I have from ChatGPT to Magic School. And this is the information that I have. As you can see, it's more, in my personal opinion, I really love Notebook for more dynamic presentations. As you can see, it's really different. Okay. I'm going to put it again, and it's from the same topic. So you can analyze the variation that we have with the slides. Totally different, right? It is something different. And we also have the infographic. And this is the interesting infographic that I have. What am I missing? The image. To create your vocabulary flashcard in Book Creator. Okay. Then I only have to I am going to put vocabulary flashcard using Adobe Express from Magic School presentation to Book Creator. And that's it. So now it's your turn. And this is the image that I have. As the only image that I have, it's only one that I have to share. So now it's your turn. This is the microcurricular planning that I am going to share in the group. And what is your job? Your job is to adapt the information using the different websites to create the links for the presentations. You have here the complete microcurricular planning. The rubric assessment. So what is your job? Upload the file and create a presentation using the prompts and information from the video in one, ChatGPT, second, Copilot, third, Gemini, fourth, Canva IA, using one presentation of the content. Second, gamification format, escape room. A game. You have to share an interactive game. Which other app? Notebook, presentation data, an infographic, 6 gamma, and 7 vocabulary verbs for the present perfect. Using 7 Magic School presentation generator and content generator. And number 7, I vocabulary verbs using Magic School image generator, image creator, plus Adobe and Book Creator. And you share the link in each one. One slide of 10, one presentation of 10 slides. Two links or screenshots. And two links, okay? So now is your turn for your portfolio, and you are going to emphasize with present perfect or with the planning that you need from this. Upload the file of this Word document, topic, present perfect, or any topic for your classes you want to try it out. And create presentations using prompts and information from the video. ChatGPT link, Copilot link, Gemini link, Canva, Notebook, Gamma of 10 slides because it's the free limited version. Magic School and vocabulary from Magic School. Image creator plus vocabulary list creator or generator. Okay. And you share the links for your portfolio. Portfolio day 3. Okay. The same, if you have any questions, you have to put in practice, because remember that this also is a practical case. You can also use the previous knowledge from, and you can also use the assessment rubric, you can extend. It's up to you. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, so now we are going to do this part using the first resource that it was from yesterday, the microcurricular planning using present perfect, and we are going to create our first prompt. What can we see here? Act as an English teacher of first year of high school. My students do not know how to use present perfect, and I want an I presentation in my PowerPoint, and again based on this microcurricular plan. We are going to start the presentation with what is a prompt and why is it the key. So what is the meaning, the definition, the conceptual theory of a prompt? A prompt is a deliberate instruction, query, or contextual setup given to an artificial intelligence model. In this case, we are going to emphasize Claude, to elicit a specific educational response, lesson asset, or analytical feedback loop. So what is a synonym for prompt in artificial intelligence? Instruction. What type of instruction? An instruction with a specific formula. Why is it necessary to emphasize the prompts for artificial intelligence teaching planning, lesson planning, teaching and learning processes? Because the artificial intelligence doesn't know until what point we teach in our classroom context. And as every class is different, every student is different, we need to have a more precise prompting because it acts as your lesson blueprint. Without a structured prompt, responses are generic and fluffy. With it, I becomes an expert pedagogical co-designer saving hours of labor. That is why this is the last session to emphasize a correct formula, process, steps, the correct procedure according to a specific task, role, context, input to emphasize for our class. So what is a prompt? An I instruction. Why is it necessary? To emphasize according to our classroom context. So what is the anatomy, the formula that we need for a high impact prompt? First, we need to emphasize the role. Define who. In this case, we are going to start with ChatGPT to integrate the previous class with this prompting engineering. But then we are going to use Claude. For example, expert Cambridge ESL curriculum specialist. We can also have after the Formula 1 role plus 2 the task. What is the task, the statement that I want to emphasize? Generate, include, design, create with a verb, with a measurable I verb. The third is the context. We have the audience. We need, as English teachers, to emphasize the CEFR level of our students, a specific time limit if we want the class for 2 hours, 45 minutes, only warm-ups for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 1 hour, and the student ESL profile, special needs, particular characteristics, and so on. Finally, we need the format. We need the output structure. For example, we want in a particular reading assessment, formative, summative, as English teachers the information must be shown using a table, columns, an activity, a type of object in a specific or particular context. So what is the formula? The universal formula for teaching prompt engineering. The role plus task plus context plus format. Role, task, context, format. Role, task, context, format. Okay, so according to this part, we are going to have a more detailed prompting with our microcurricular planning using first ChatGPT to analyze the differences also between all of these intelligence in artificial intelligence applications. Okay, So first, let's emphasize the role. Act as an English teacher. As we want to emphasize more the role, what do we have to do? For example, act as an English high school teacher. We need to emphasize the educational level that we are. Second, we have the task, generate, include, integrate, design. I want a 20 slides presentation in PowerPoint about present perfect. Affirmative, negative, interrogative. Then what do we have? The context, the time limit, and the student profile. My students don't know, my B1 students don't know how to use present perfect, and they have translanguaging issues from Spanish to English. For 45 minutes class, and shy students. Then I have the format. I want a presentation, a worksheet, a role play, a game, and a homework in my case. So that's it. I am going to click send the prompt and I am going to see what happens. Okay, so as I don't have more access, I need to say that I have here the 20 slides that I am going to share now in Cloud, the same information. Why? Because Cloud, you have the immediate Microsoft PowerPoint presentation and the game. So I am going to switch to Cloud. And I am going to share the first general prompt in Cloud. As you can see, you can also add a notification. It's different. Although Cloud is also a premium and free application. We have here some other systems that you are only going to have access if you pay that I am going to share, but this is the first resource as a general universal prompt for English teachers. Then we are going to see more detailed prompts to emphasize a particular context, role, activity, project too. One of the advantages of using cloud is that you have a particular development and exploration of skills. You also have to design a project, and we are going to do this practice using the class, the resource from yesterday, into a more detailed, complex, and specialized prompt design. You can see it takes time also for this application, so we are going to wait. As you can see, it also takes time. So I am going also to change for the other application that it was from yesterday, that is Gemini. Gemini has a shorter way to wait for this design that I am going to share here too. And the same, we are going to share the information based on the microcurricular planning from yesterday, and we are going to see how it works in this artificial intelligence tool. It's the same prompt because the prompt you don't change, you only specify and modify according to your needs. Okay, while we wait for Gemini, we have here the process that Cloud took. So it also takes time. Something that is interesting for Cloud is that you can have also the process itself, okay? Imagine that. Now, this artificial intelligence tool is also try to read and it shares what in this case this tool did, because I shared a lot of information. It wasn't only a presentation or so on. Okay, so we are going also to wait while we continue with the second application with the same prompt. So to see which one we have the best prompting. As you can see, we have more detail about this part faster than cloud. And here we have the presentation. The anticipation, because remember that it was based on the planning of the document from the microcurricular planning that we have. We have a question. We have which type of planning do we have using Gemini. We have the emphasis from simple present, present perfect, interrogative. We have the graded practice, we have the worksheet itself, the challenge, we have a escape room as part of the presentation, and the homework assignment. Can we adapt it? Yes. We can create into a game. Okay, so let's see if we have the information from Claude. Okay, in this case, I cannot do this part because I don't have two credits, too many credits in the free account. So I need to change the account in order to use it. That I am going to do right now. Something that it is necessary to emphasize is that you have, according to the role, you have a particular design of cloud. Okay. So this is the prompt, the automatic prompt that you have based on the type of role and option that you have. As we have a particular microcurricular planning using present perfect, I want to emphasize the design that I have before. Here I have some efforts and models. In my case, I want to emphasize the one that it's also pre-established, and the same with the format here. We have some models, but for these models, you need to pay. That is the reason. We have here also, we can connect to more connectors. We can use different type of skills that we also can have that we are going to analyze after, and we are going, and then we are going to add a project. In this case, we are not going to add a project. We are going to start with a prompt. So this is the first slide that I have that I also can check, I can download, and I have in this case, I realize that it can be a good slide, but we need to let the artificial intelligence tool to finish in order to revise the complete one. As you can see, it took time for this application to emphasize the prompt with the application of the presentation, the homework, the role play. It really took time. However, we have here, it's not a detailed presentation as that one, but we have here two. Okay. So according to this part, what is the core ELT prompting templates? Also for assessing speaking, listening, reading, writing, games, and dynamics. So first we have the prompting for reading and writing task. In this case, we have first the target text. For example, which verb do I have to use? Generate. Second, we have the specific type of text that I want. So first I have an I verb. In this case, generate. Second, we have text type. Match to strict CEFR tires. We have profile, the role, to whom, on any academic or engaging topic, the output. For grading task in build, analytic rubrics, evaluation task, achievement, coherent lexical resource, and grammatical accuracy. So we have the I verb, we have the format, and we have the output. What is the prompt? Act First, we have the role as an expert English language assessor. We can have teacher of basic education, high school, university level. Create a 4-criteria analytic rubric 1-4 scale for a B1 informal email requesting advice, include clear behavioral descriptors for students. Okay. Let's see if it has already finished. And finally, we have the 5 resources here for all as a summary, as a conclusion for your module. In this case, let's see first the presentation. So which one is better or more detail for everything that you want? In this case, because I have a very strong prompt where I want to use different type of resources at the same time, that it was also part of a question from the second class. So this is my presentation. Imagine that. And it's really nice actually. It's 45 minutes because that was from the prompt. I have a warm-up. I don't know if you really like the warm-up. I am also going to share this in the drive because this is a general content that we have and I hope you find it useful. So first, this is the first resource that we have, and we have a Spanish-English version because of the prompt. What did I say? I say that my students don't know how to use present perfect. So this artificial intelligence tool emphasizes directly that what I need is to emphasize also with Spanish and English language. Why? Because the majority of the problems that I have with my students as a hypothetical situation is that they have translanguage issues. It also has typical errors or interference and silent participation for students who are shy. Imagine that before talking in reading aloud activities. So I really find quite useful. It also has a teacher tip. Imagine that. Point to each picture, students give thumbs up, down, no talking needed. Why? Because that is the profile that I have and I share. This is something useful and practical, especially for students who are shy, or you have students who are introverted. Online classes, the majority of students don't like to participate. And for students who are afraid of making speaking mistakes. Imagine that we also have the objectives. Use our tasks, ask and answer, talk. Why? Because I also started the prompt with the emphasis of skills, speaking, reading, listening, writing, and reading. So I am going to look if all of the things that I wanted to share based on the microcurricular planning I have. Then I have this information to use according to this artificial intelligence tool to emphasize the particular English and Spanish dual immersion because of the level of my students, which I found interesting and useful too. Then I have the concept, the result. It's really nice. Contrast quickly in order to emphasize past versus present perfect. Then I have affirmative. Why? Because my prompt says an affirmative, negative, interrogative to emphasize from present perfect. Okay, it's really nice. Regular past, the same with teacher tip. We have irregular past participles to learn too. It's really cool. Affirmative sentences, the negative form, how to build the question, short answers, signal words, common mistakes to avoid. We have the worksheet, and we have, in this case, the instruction. Pair check 6 minutes and then trade papers with a partner and compare 3 answers before we review qué de las clases. Paid interview, that it was part of the speaking activity too. Travel agency interview, we have the roles. And it says, because of my emphasis of the students, shy students allow them to read directly from the role-play card. Word for current first scripted support. Then encourage one improvised follow-up question once they are confident. Cool. And we have here game. That it was also part. I decided to include everything at once so you can have a general idea and a statement. And I am going to share also in the drive format so you can have the same with the video. You can play as many times as you prefer. You can make a pause. You can copy and paste the prompts, and you can have this for adapting for any planning. Which is this game, Present Perfect Detective. What do we need to do with this part? We are going to take a screenshot. In my case, I'm going to take a screenshot. And I am going to emphasize this part to have a more interactive game. But I need to do in another account because I don't have enough very limited account. So I am going to take a screenshot for this game to emphasize in the next prompt. Okay, we have a homework section too, and we have a success criteria. I consider that is really nice and interesting, and I am going to share so you can adapt according to your classes. Then we have present detective game that it was part of the presentation, and in this part we are going to play it. Imagine this part. Wow. Present perfect detective. A tourist is standing outside. I am going to choose one. What? So you have also the game. I am going to share the game too for you. I am going to see what happens if I am grown. I have only 3 lives. Okay, so I am going to suspectize everything. That's really interesting. As you can see, with the negative resolutions, I have less lives. Okay, so if I want, I can play it again. I am going to share the same. And it's really interesting. In this case, I have a present perfect detective for 12 mystery cases, multiple choice, with a system of lies and points. And it is played individually. It's really nice. Then we have a worksheet and I have a role play. So I am going to share the same. And I am going to share these resources in your drive. In the drive are going to be all of these resources. Now let's see the worksheet. Imagine that it also is included in the presentation, but it also will have the resource because of the prompt that I share. Okay, so let's see. First, we don't have an editable version here. That is the worksheet I see that was. Okay, we have the answer key. It's really interesting. We can adapt or we can generate only the prompt for the worksheet. And we have, sorry, I have here the role play travel agency. So let's see how is the role play in a particular resource. Mm, that is really interesting. You have the role created as a particular worksheet. It is included in the presentation and it is included as part of the role play. We can create escape room too. It is a good one. If you ask me which one I prefer to pay, I will pay for Cloud. It's really nice. And I have here also my homework. It is really cool. If I want, I can emphasize more. Okay? It is really good. I consider that this is a good prompt and totally different. Okay. What is the prompt for games and dynamics? We can have warm-ups. We can have interactive role plays. For example, act as a gamification expert, design a 15-minute speaking game for 16 intermediate students practicing modal verbs for seduction, provide clear rules, materials needed, and a debriefing questions. Okay. So I have the steps, the investigation, but I want the interactive game. Okay. So now I have the escape room. I have here this part that you can see also that it can be part of a format in presentation, PDF, that I am going to share with PDF also for your accounts. So now we have advanced pedagogical prompting for speaking, grammar, and also for project-based learning. For example, we can have a particular text to generate Socratic question loops, tire debate prompts with counter arguments and pronunciation stress marking guides for complex discourse markers, and design inductive grammar discovery tags, create an inductive grammar discovery tags for the third conditional using a short text, followed by a 3 guided noticing questions before revealing the rule. What is the next in this case? The general prompt generates Socratic question loops, type prompts, and pronunciation making for And in this case, for using a short text before revealing the rule. Okay, this is my prompt. If I want to emphasize grammar and speaking. For high school students and university students, generate the discussion, the type debate prompts, pronunciation stress marking guides, and the inductive grammar discovery, which I am going to try if I have more space here in Cloud. I hope so, but I really don't know. Okay. Act as a game designer and create an interactive game for second conditional reflexive pronouns. Verbs about accomplishment and regrets for undergraduate students who love to play Minecraft. My students love challenges and play video games of mental reasoning. Okay. You're missing them. So I hope that I have enough plan for that, but I am going to share. I am going to share the same format. Here in Gemini to see which one has the best resource for me. Okay. In this case, I am going to create an interactive game to emphasize because as you could realize, it didn't read enough. I have here the game. Imagine that. So it says, why second conditional reflexive pronouns, verbs about accomplishments or regrets? Because this is the last topic that I have for my students, and I don't like to use the book all the time. So that's why I decided to share the sample using the content from my class. So if you prefer to integrate a dynamic before the book, in my case, that is what I am going to do, try to use class because it's a more detailed, complex, but it has more resources than the previous ones, as you could see. So let's see, it says Craft the condition. That is a good idea for me. A Minecraft grammar quest. Why Minecraft? Because my students love Minecraft. It's a particular block game with Minecraft pixel. Imagine that. I can download to the game. Imagine this part. This is something very practical for us as teachers. Do you want me to prepare a worksheet or a mini lesson as present perfect lesson to reinforce before they play? Sure. In my case, I am going to put in Spanish in order to have that idea. Okay. I am going to put enter. I have here total number of questions 18 and I have the same. So it's a really interesting way to remember. Okay. So in this case, I have here my game and I need to share for the students the code. This part so they can have access because it's an online version, like Codex. I don't know if have you ever used Codex before, but Cloud is similar to Codex, where you can create using artifacts in this way. Okay, so let's see what says about the worksheet and the Q&A. Okay. Yes, actually it says the same. I need to upgrade in this case, but I prefer not to upgrade. But yes, this is part of the process. I need to switch to create more. Okay, but it's really interesting. Okay, now I need prompting for project-based learning. Let's see. We have here the code that we can also copy and paste for Codex. Okay. So we only have to download. Okay. And this is my game. This is my game and I have to put start and I have the game. I am going to use one and I can continue only if I have the same way. Imagine that. We can also have a Gemini. Which one do you prefer? The game, the code, the interactive game that was from Cloud or from Gemini? Which one do you prefer? It's really nice. Both are really nice to use. Okay. Now we have a prompting for project-based learning. We have driving questions. We can have design a 3-week project-based learning unit for your upper intermediate high school students or your A1, your A2, where they pitch a sustainable community initiative. Include weekly milestones, language scaffolds, and final assessment criteria. Interesting. So let's see. I have some other codes and prompts that we can use also to emphasize. For example, this is a particular prompt for Claude. I need to design a didactic unit for my subject. I have here the duration. I have here the central unit. To emphasize the difference. Generate an artifact, name of the unit, learning, the calendar, and the sessions. We have here others. Which one do you think is the best prompting to emphasize the design of project-based learning? Which one do you still find it more useful? Design a planning of 80 minutes about the strategies, methodological strategies to promote. Yes, it can work too. We're going to see that in Cloud too. I want to teach to emphasize the profile of the students, and I want to teach them in a very funny, interactive way. Yes, but we are not emphasizing the type of prompt that we want to emphasize too. It's more like a personal commentary for the artificial intelligence tool. To develop strategic competencies and analytical of the students of a particular from marketing career to promote. It is a good one for university students. So which ones are the pitfalls and best practices that we need to emphasize? And the common errors when using artificial intelligence and professional recommendations. So first, we need to accept that the output from the artificial intelligence requires teaching feedback. Sometimes it can be too vague, for example, write an English lesson. Ignoring local student cultural context and interests, and over-reliance on AI for international emotional classroom rapport. Although it is said that we can use some social emotional tasks, there is no comparison of using emotional and empathetic rapport. Some recommendations especially to use Claude as a co-designer, not a substitute. Remember that the prompt is human-based design, so we need to emphasize that human-based design, okay? Build a personal prompt library of your best formulas. This is a good idea to start because as you could see during the module, during the course, we have lots of prompts, lots of resources that you can get confused because of the complexity or the bombing of the lots of information that we have. So it's necessary to copy paste the most specific tools, prompts that you want to use and start once at one time. It is useful to start with one on Monday or the whole week in order to test, validate how is the tool with your students' results, inputs, and outputs. Always specify learner age, proficiency level, and constraints. Yes, because if I share this game that I created with Cloud and Gemini with my A1 students, they are going to be confused, overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, because one of the most common limitations for gamification is the anxiety and time limit of the activities that we have to do. Not only students, but also for teachers. So it's really mandatory, necessary, and urgent that we use according to the student's level, profile in English, development, and collaborative work. Iterate redefine outputs using follow-up feedback. Yes, in this case, for example, I am going to share this game today with my students from 5 to 7 p.m. And I am going to ask them for feedback and I am going to say, hey, I have two resources. This is my artifact from cloud and this is my HTML game for Gemini. Which one do you prefer? There are some criteria rubrics too to assess gaming, and one of them is the time, the process of collaborative work, the use of points, gamification elements too, the level of complexity. Okay, so that is what I need to include in order to redefine my prompt. It is necessary. Not only do you like it or not, it is necessary to emphasize the criteria that it was set in order to test, assess, validate, or redefine the next prompt and the next games too. Okay. So now, in order to have a better introduction to prompt engineering for English teachers, it is necessary to master the design of cloud for alignments with the curriculum, the Mineduc, or core competencies in higher education, basic education, high school, and university levels. So what was the anatomy of the prompt? We have the role and the persona. Don't forget to define Cloud's exact professional background. Why? Because as it requires the role who is going to be the person to be assigned, it is necessary to emphasize to who and to whom. We have context and tires, specify the educational bracket, and precise the English level proficiency framework as English teachers. Why? In order to avoid the controversy of using a standard prompt for beginners. We need to know our students and in particular the profile. The tasks and the constraints explicitly detail deliverables, formatting preferences, vocabulary filters, and target grammar points. Why? Remember that we don't have a particular universal prompt for everything. We need to give a detail according to the role, the context, the output, the activities, and the task. So remember, role plus persona, context or tire, task and constraints. Okay. So now we are going to create a project-based learning engagement through real-world challenges. In this case, I am going to use the same format that I have for my students' accomplishments, conditional reflexive pronouns, and verbs, phrasal verbs for talking about accomplishments. I am going to copy and paste the prompt that I have for project-based learning. I am going to create in Gemini, design a 3-week, in this case, according to your educational level. The majority of high schools and schools in Ecuador, we have the 4 weeks of the lesson plan of a unit. So it is better to change. That's why we have the prompt to emphasize according to a real practical context. Okay. In my case, I prefer design a 4-week PBL unit, and because the majority of us, we have more beginner than upper intermediate or advanced learners, and it can also be used for any educational level. Design a 4-week PBL unit for beginner high school students and 6th grade students, where they pitch a sustainable community initiative. This is one of the most general interdisciplinary projects that at high schools and schools we almost have. Which one is the most common one? Recycling. Include weekly milestones, language scaffolds, functional phrasers, and a final assessment criteria. Summative, formative assessment. Speaking, listening, reading, writing, grammar and vocabulary tasks for A1 students. See? My students don't like to talk, don't like to work collaboratively, and have a low English level where they use Spanish and English. Okay. I want to teach them with interactive games, project, and role plays. Okay. You can adapt according to your needs. Okay. So now I have here the roadmap, the summative assessment, sharing Word document, the complete PBL project, and the interactive game to start with. Okay. So what is the name of my weekly PBL unit? Eco Heroes Community Pitch. It can be for any part of basic education, high school, or university. Problem identification, like eco vocabulary, interactive role play. We have the summative, we have the interactive game. Okay. Now I have to create the interactive resources. In a format to download and to play. We can also have for both summative, formative assessment, and we can include them. Okay. So now I have here, I am going to download. I have here my flashcard match and my problem solver game. I have here the, and it's really nice. And I have here my game. You walk into your schoolyard and see empty plastic bottles and paper wrappers. So what is the problem stated? I am going to use this one. It says next challenge, mission problem identification. So I can use this also to create a research problem, project-based learning for adult learners. Choose the correct functional phrase to propose a solution. Okay, you have successfully finished week 1. Return home. Okay, imagine that. That is really cool. I want to emphasize for my students The same format, accomplishments and goals. Game for 30 minutes. HTML. No, those. What else can I have? And I have mastering past accomplishments and future goals. It says minuteless. Imagine that. And I have the time. It's a really good idea for emphasizing, in my case, this is a real sample that I am going to use today to test the three games. And I am going to share how it went with my students. Did they like it? Did they find time anxious limitations from previous studies that it was so tasted? How did I need to know about that? Okay. This is a particular prompt for high school. If you want to emphasize project-based learning, prompting for B1 students. As you could see, we can also emphasize for the student's profile in English, the student's personal, emotional, academic characteristics, which is also necessary to use. Why? So we guide the artificial intelligence to personalize the learning for our particular group of students. So imagine here we have high impact prompt design versus the pedagogical value. What do we have here? This act as an expert high school EF curriculum designer design a 4-week PBL unit for B1 students. So we can also have with a question. As you could see, this is not like a universal prompt to use. We can use according to questions too. What is the question here? How can our school reduce its plastic footprint by 50% this semester? Include weekly milestones, grammar targets, first conditionals, models of obligations, and vocabulary fields. What is the difference with this prompt from the previous prompts? And the pedagogical value. PBL prompts compel Cloud to sequence scaffolded milestones rather than just grading stand-alone worksheets. Students contextualize target grammar conditionals within authentic civic action campaigns, driving natural communicative output. Okay? And it's true, that is one of the most common purposes for PBL, for scaffolding. So, which project-based learning do you have now? Do you want to implement, or are you interested in emphasizing? Okay. We also can use the engineering prompting to emphasize case studies and English for specific purposes, which is most common for careers, university students, undergraduate students, and also in IB high schools, where it requires the interdisciplinary approach with our students. So what is the first prompt that we have for university, in this case, intermediate or B2 students? For example, act as an English for specific purposes syllabus developer. Create a case study and lesson sequence for B2 university students. Sustainable fashion startups facing a peer crisis over supply chain transparency include a 150-word narrative, passive voice practice, corporate vocabulary, and a stakeholder negotiation roles. What is the pedagogical value of this prompt? When we teach at university levels, we have a variation of careers at once. The level of diversity is more than with basic education students and high school students. So this prompt requires a multi-perspective role-play design. And this is advisable to use in cloud because cloud generates authentic corporate discourse. We have particular skills that we can emphasize, especially for university students. We can emphasize soft skills, hard skills, in order to emphasize for professional competencies. Forcing B2 students to practice nuance, negotiation, language, and formal register for practical professional purposes. We can also apply this into an structured lesson planning. The prompt engineering is extremely useful for English teachers to apply in the ESSA framework, in this case as a particular case for middle school education. What is the ESSA framework that we can use especially with beginners or middle school? The high impact prompt design. Act as an instructional designer for middle school. Create a 60-minute A2 lesson plan on daily routines using present simple and adverbs of frequency. What is ESSA? Is engage, study, and activate. This prompt is useful for kids and also for any age because we shape the boundaries, we prevent I from generated unbalanced lessons, and a good transition from the warm-up hooks to control grammar drift and communicative activation. We can also create, and we are missing in our prompts, formative and summative assessment, building target rubrics and checkpoint quizzes. So what we are missing? Rubric and a checkpoint quiz. So what it will be a good, advisable, suggestible, formative, and summative prompting? To create a formative quiz, request discrete skill checkpoints for basic education with the type of assessment that they want. Do I want a gap fill, guided, multiple choice? Explicitly instruct Cloud to provide complete answer keys or error feedback guides. So you can give a lesson after the mistakes that the students may face. What is a good summative rubric, especially for high school students? To instruct Cloud to output analytic matrix rubric across criteria, content accuracy, vocabulary range on a 4-point scale with clear qualitative descriptors. We can also use the indicators, the assessment rubrics that our institutions have, or for the Ministry of Education, or according to the curriculum design of English as a second language that we are going to use in this moment too. I'm going to copy and paste in the same format that we have here to have a interactive game. We can also have in worksheet, but I prefer in an interactive game. So now I have my formative quiz and discrete skill checkpoint with error feedback guide. Welcome to your interactive checkpoints. This quiz tests 3 specific discrete skills with complete integrated answer keys and error feedback diagnostics. First, we have reading comprehension text analysis. Then we have a grammar gap fill and guided personal grading tasks and scaffolding. Okay. So I have here text analysis for this part. I am going to choose one in order to share the feedback. Wait, here my feedback, reread the second sentence of the text. And it's quite really useful for our students who are B2 level and they require a specific quiz for us. Now we are missing an analytical matrix. To emphasize this part too. Okay. So what is my analytic assessment rubric? In this case, I have content, grammar accuracy, vocabulary range, and delivery. And it's really good. If I want to use in another part, we can use copy, we can continue the conversation, or we can export or to send to Gmail. Okay. So now, are you ready to prompt? Because now it's your turn. So, what were the best practices at all? To emphasize these practical uses of artificial intelligence. Okay, last but not least, I am going to share the last recommendations, a summary from all of the things that we have checked, so in order you can apply. Okay, so last but not least, as a summary, I am going to share the same document as a summary of the 4 days. Integration from engineering and ethics for English educators. So this was the first module to emphasize modern AI tools, in this case Copilot, Magic School, and I specialized presentation generators to elevate English language teaching while maintaining rigorous ethical and pedagogical standards. What is the summary for Copilot? First, Copilot is an intelligent co-teacher that helps educators brainstorm lesson plans, generate reading comprehension texts, and build differentiated learning materials. And its value is because it lets us to have workflows, student engagement, and interactive classroom facilitation, and tailored student support. Remember when you use Copilot to emphasize the core prompt and to collaborate to invite students. Magic School for Educators Summary. A specialized site platform designed for teachers to generate custom rubrics, vocabulary lists, quiz assessments, and level text passages instantly. What is the pedagogical value? Despite of having a lot of content, it saves hours of material creation. So the general summary for Magic School is material creation. For Copilot, workflow. Presentation tools and generators. Using modern tools, Gamma, Canva, Notebook, instructional tests into more dynamic, visually striking slide text. The pedagogical value, as a summary, is that it gives more visual support, reduces cognitive load, and bridges language barriers through multimedia. Multimedia, interactive knowledge. Prompt engineering for English teachers. We have the art of crafting precise instructions to get optimal educational outputs from AI models. Precision, instructional planning, and SL design. The best practice is to emphasize the prompt formula. Role, audience, task, output, format. However, there are some ethical considerations that we need to have in AI-assisted teaching. Transparency, authenticity. These tools assist us, but it requires a human-based format prompting for mainly pedagogical choices. According to the bias and cultural alignment, we need to ensure cultural relevance, sensitivity, based or aligned to Mineduc and Common European Framework standards, and unbiased representation. According to data privacy and student safety, we never need to use the age of a particular name student to upload the ID, neither the performance records or any public information in unverified platforms. According to the compliance, adhering strictly to institutional data security protocols and safeguarding student confidentiality across all digital workflows. Finally, the recommendations that we have for this part is first, start to use these iTools for scaffolding. It's better to have skills, grammar, vocabulary, use of English scaffolding, rather than sentence frames and bilingual bridges to support translanguage, rather than replacing student critical thinking, and to promote engagement through the interactive games, interactive quizzes, the interactive presentations, with this interactive gamification, with escape rooms, charades, role plays, and to promote this educational support for all the students, especially for shy, reluctant learners actively involved. Online, face-to-face classes, if you are virtual classes, as you prefer. The formative assessment feedback integration, we have the diagnostic tracking you can use for discrete skills checkpoints as it was done for reading, grammar, guided writing, with answer key and error feedback guides. And the conclusion and actionable next steps. What do you need to do next? What's next? First, you need to create a plan saving time with all of these resources to use, visual delivery, and support diverse proficiency levels. What is the next step? First, start with once at one time, 1 week to test, validate, and for feedback for your classes. Start with Copilot, Magic School, Cloud, to pilot a single gamified lesson interactive rubric in your upcoming classes. Then you test, validate, redesign the prompt. Test, validate. For testing, validating, redesigning your prompts in each class. Okay, so I hope you find this interesting, useful. You have a brief summary. I am going to share this summary too in the drive, so you can have. I invite you to choose one particular platform, the one that caught your attention more, so you can emphasize this process, and you can start with your own classes based on the prompt. Remember the prompt, role, output, format, the audience, the specific task, content, the level of your students, to introduce to this amazing world of the artificial intelligence that it arrives to stay with us for a long time. It revolutionizes also the teaching and learning area, and it's really interesting. We as teachers, according to previous studies, we only need to emphasize the role of us next to the artificial intelligence tools rather than replacement, and we need to emphasize and to get to know our students for content or classes to start to use. So, according to the video, as a part of the portfolio and the reflection process at the end, tell me, which artificial intelligence tool did you find more useful, interesting, cheap tester, a good implementation for your classes? Why or why not? Which one are you going to use? Which prompt is the first one that you are going to test with your students, and why? What do you find easy, hard, difficult to keep during the module? Which one are you going to test and why? How? How many days? Are you going to start with a project, with a task, with a warm-up, with a speaking, listening, writing activity, with an assessment? Why did you decide to start with a one instead of a project, start a 4 week? Did you prefer to start with a game as with the HTML version? Why? What is your class type? How not did you know your students to emphasize this type of learning? Please let me know as part of this final assessment evaluation, reflection, self-evaluation, and reflection for your upcoming, present, or past classes. If you want to share the last format sample that you have, and if you have any doubts, questions, I hope you find it useful and see you next time. Have a nice day and good luck with your classes and implementation of these tools, at least Copilot, Gemini, Magic School, and Kali. Thank you very much for your participation.